There he is.
Hello. How's it going?
Ed Prosek in the flesh, in the virtual flesh.
Prosek, that is.
How you doing, Ed?
Nice to meet you. Yeah. Good. How are you?
Good. So are you in Berlin right now? Is that where you're coming to us from?
No, I'm out in the west of Germany.
Okay.
In the Black Forest. But I've been splitting my time working on different projects out here and hitting back to Berlin to work with Drew, who's the other member of Driftwood Choir.
Yeah, fascinating. So what happens in the Blackwood Forest, if you don't mind me asking, Ed? Like what's the creativity like there?
In the forest. Well,
Yeah.
it's something that the album that we just wrote touches on a lot. That there's this millennial wish all of a sudden after spending so long in the city to escape to somewhere and touch nature. And I grew up in Northern California,
Sure.
and it was sort of strange to see all the parallels when my first time out here, and I fell in love with it immediately. And it's totally different. California is so wild and untouched in Northern California. And here everything is so organized. I mean, it's Germany. People have been living here for a million years, and all of the forests are pre-planned, and the trees they're regulated 1 meter apart
Yeah,
distance. But still, the forest is the forest,
absolutely.
and it's wonderful to be able to get out of the city and come out here. So
Absolutely. Absolutely, Ed. Well, and you have such a fascinating life story, and we'll touch about it. But thanks again for joining. One half of Driftwood Choir, along with Portair, Drew Southwell, of course. Wonderful album. First of all, congratulations, Ed. It's really a
thank you. Thank
yeah.
you.
So Ed, let me start with this. There's so much happening in the world, and you're such a worldly soul for my audience that probably already figured it out. You're international soul. Born in California, citizen of the world. Do you let, without going too political, but do you kind of like let politics affect your music, or are you more of the mindset, Ed, of like, I'm going to just focus on making good art that appeals to everybody, kind of thing?
I do this purely for the introspection and the meaningfulness to me, and I don't let politics come in between me and what I'm trying to say. And I find just in general that um the things that I'm trying to talk about are a lot more universal
Right.
than any passing moment. And with all of these songs, it's yeah, it's very much related to me and my life and the things that I'm going through and the things that I can relate to, because it's my personal dialogue. And in the case with
Sure.
Driftwood Choir, what Drew and I both can feel. But it's really very personal uh rather than anything specific
Yeah.
to
And I think,
politics.
and I think, I think that's why it resonates so profoundly, because you can tell it comes from the soul. You can't fool the listener. Um, and Ed, let me ask you about Driftwood, just like your partnership with Drew, because you have a great solo career. You've done it for a while. Drew also has his own thing. When do that you are collaborating with someone? I live in Nashville, so I see it all the time. But people collaborate for like a single or like a co-write. But when do you know that like you have something so special that it like merits like its own side project? Like when did you guys realize like, okay, this is like next level?
Well, it was right away, really. And I've worked with a number of different artists on a number of different things, and when I met Drew, I was doing uh what I thought would be a series of collaborations with other artists. But really with Drew, it was funny because I brought an idea that I had been struggling with for a really long time, and I tried to write a whole bunch of times. A musical idea that I thought had a lot of potential, but I just couldn't quite get there. And as often happens with me, I'll have these ideas that I really like, and I just can't quite nail it for some reason. And I brought this musical idea to Drew, not knowing him at all, and he understood it immediately, and he was able to help me get over myself in that sense. And when we wrote this song together for the first time, and it came out brilliant. And that song is Constantinople, which was the first one we released, and it was the one that we released before there was any concept of a band or a group. We were just doing it as a collaborative thing, and it was so good we were like, oh, let's put this out. And then we got together again and we wrote a bad dream from an old life, which, you know, if you have two sessions like that back to back with somebody, you realize, oh wow, this is something incredibly special. With Drew as well, we're we're sort of two sides of the same coin. We have very similar, though from completely different sides of the world, really. I mean, he's from Australia, he lived in Los Angeles. I'm from California, and I lived in Europe
Yep.
for the duration of my career so far. And but we've had such similar experiences in the music industry. We were at such sort of similar levels. We just had such a good understanding of what we wanted and what we wanted this to look like and how we wanted it to go, that it made the whole process so easy. We didn't really have to discuss so many of those basic things because we already
Yeah.
understood them. So that was
Amazing.
fantastic.
It's almost like love, but like creatively, like love at first sight or something.
100%, 100%. And you know, like when you do a project like this and it consumes then a year of your life, we were writing that day because he's uh, uh, somewhere else and I'm out here in Western Europe, and it's like, uh, you know, we're celebrating because this album's out and it's doing really well, and I'm really happy. And I think I'm so proud of it. But at the same time, I'm sad. It feels like the end of something. We're gonna come back and do it again.
Mm,
But you know, I had so much fun putting this together, and it
sure.
was something so new after so many years of working on my own solo project and doing my own thing. That yeah, of course.
Beautiful. I want to ask you about Constantinople, but first let me ask you at something really interesting you said. Because I'm not an artist, but I have a lot of artist friends, and I find it fascinating, like the way that your minds work. When you say that you have this concept that wasn't quite getting there, and it was Drew that took you over the finish line. Why is that, like Ed? Because obviously, like you had the bones of the song, you had most of it. Is it because you spend like so many hours like in front of the computer, just like tinkering? Is it like you're almost like too close to the trees that like you just need someone to like zoom you out or do well?
I think that's definitely a big part of it. You know, when you write alone, you are saying something very specific to you, and it comes from somewhere deeply personal. And when you write with somebody else, even if you want to be as open as possible, it's impossible. And so you always have this little bit of distance. And then when there's somebody else in the room, you have that distance to those deeply personal things, and you have to then instead find something personal with someone else. You have to find some kind of middle ground that you can both relate to. And I think that is exactly what you just described, that it gives you that distance from whatever struggles you've been having perhaps with this, what I had been having with this particular idea. And to that end, a lot of the ideas on this album are ideas that are exactly like that I had struggled with, musical ideas always that I had struggled with over the course of like 10 years or something. And so this album feels really, really incredibly special to me because it's sort of a triumph of all of the ideas I thought were great, but really couldn't quite get there on my own. And Drew really helped me get there with all of them. And he brought obviously some songs. We wrote some together that were just purely off the cuff, but a couple of these songs really were old ideas that I always had faith in, but somehow every time I tried to get them, and you know what it's like, and it doesn't have to be music. If you do something and you fail, let's say, and then you do it again and you fail, you start to build up your own, like, you know,
You get in your head.
you get in your head about it,
Yeah,
and it is incredibly helpful to have somebody else there to help
sure.
you get out of it. And just a clean slate, a clean slate. You bring the idea as neutral as possible without any of the preconceived notions that you have or the ideas that you want. You just bring them simple idea, the musical idea, and let somebody else, if they're into it, help you turn it into something new.
Such a fascinating concept that and it worked because the album has it's incredible listen. I mean, it's almost like one big, gigantic, fascinating listen. There's no, it just feels so coherent. It's beautiful. And there's songs like Way Back Home, right? That kind of connects to this that you're saying it. Because we saw some video, we saw some stuff. You've been playing this song for years. When you are kind of like testing a song with an audience, couple years, 18 months before it's released, don't you like I would almost like get nervous a little bit, like that there's this song that I think is wonderful and your gut is right. But don't you feel a little nervous putting it out in front of people like before? Or is that part of it? Is it like you want to gauge their reaction?
Um, No, not really. I mean, yeah, I think for both Drew and I, we've been doing this long enough that uh, you're used to not only having on the good side your expectations sort of be met by the audience response, but also the opposite of that. Songs you thought were going to do really, really well don't do particularly well at all for whatever reason it is. Sometimes it's bad luck in timing. Sometimes maybe the song isn't as good as you thought. And um, I think one of the anybody who's managed to last in the music industry this long is incredibly good at dealing with disappointment because
Yeah,
that's just a part of it to the point that it stops being disappointing at all. So no, we put these songs out fully believing in them. And also we did it in such an incremental way. We saw that this was working really from the
sure.
word go. And all that did was to help us just double down on what it was that this was supposed to be. Because we did it so improvisationally, because we did it sort of uh, on the fly, we had to figure out, okay, what is it that we actually want this to be? And all of these things came together during the process of releasing them, seeing what worked, seeing what didn't. And it didn't necessarily alter what we were doing musically, but it did give us a lot of hope that these songs were going to reach a lot of people, and they are. And that's
Oh,
really cool.
absolutely.
It's really cool for
Absolutely.
a brand new project. I mean, that is really cool.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah, love that. It. Yeah, that's very well said. Ed, let me go back a little bit to your upbringing, if you don't mind, for just a second. I mean, obviously your father is from the Czech Republic, your mom is Italian, and you were born in California, like you said. You've talked recently about, and this is such a fascinating concept in research. You've talked recently about like longing for roots, like longing to be grounded. Um, what do you mean by this a little bit? Because I feel like we're kind of the same age, and I think I kind of relate to that, and people are kind of like relating to that our age. But what do you mean by that?
well, I think that it's a couple of different factors put together. I think on one hand, yes, I perhaps not uniquely, but specifically, and Drew as well, and maybe you as well, I don't know, have moved around a lot in the course of our lives. And it's one of those things that you realize as you move to a new place and build a new, whatever, sort of functional, comforting home life, that nothing is truly as comforting as your childhood memories, right? And
Mm,
and one day you have to decide ultimately, hey, I'm going to live here. I'm going to decide to plant my roots here. It's not like it falls upon you necessarily. And I think one of the problems for people who move around a lot is that I think we're waiting for those roots to grow themselves. And I
mm,
think that goes into the second part of it, which is that, if we're the same age, um, sort of beginning to middle 30s, then it's that time of your life where you feel that you're supposed to be setting down these roots. You're supposed to be having these roots. They're supposed to be there. You have that pull towards that. And so, yeah, it can leave you feeling aimless and lost if you don't sit down and make the decision of, oh, I'm going to make it work wherever it is that I am, as long as I'm happy enough. Let's figure this out. What does it take to make a home out of somewhere potentially foreign?
sure.
And that was definitely what I tried to do here in Germany. I mean, I'm married to a German, and I speak German, and I, I, I've integrated as much as I can, and as much as I'm willing to. But yeah, that's an incredibly important moment right now, and I think it's really important for a lot of millennials who are making that exact
Yeah,
same calculation. This music speaks to that that it's something that's happening personally to each one of us, but also generationally.
absolutely. Very well said. Ed, let me leave you with this. You're being so good with your time, and I appreciate it. You got married about 3 years ago to a great German person, like you said. You share a great dog. You share it online. It's great. You have a prolific career. You've recorded for so long, trumpet since 8 years old. But how has this like latest chapter, finding love, setting roots, how has it like affected or not affected your songwriting? You know how they used to say that like Alanis Morissette used to make better music when she was unhappy? You
Yeah.
know, have you found like that you write more, that you write less? Like how has your artistic life changed
I
or not at all?
I think that's such a trap because it's very true. But what I would say is that when you're young, the act of writing music, even if you start as early as I did, which I started writing songs at 10, and I studied classical music and I've been in integrated music, when you start doing music and when you start writing, it feels so mystical and magical and somehow like some out of body experience. And as wonderful as that is, it means that you're relying on outside input to help you create, right? You're sort of not in control of the creative process. And the more you do it, hopefully with time, as long as you're taking it seriously, as long as you're treating it like a muscle or like a job, um, hopefully when you like, uh, you start to be you start to get control over the faucet of creativity.
Mm,
And once you gain control of that faucet, it's no longer terrifying. It's no You no longer need to self-destruct in order to create. Um, you're hopefully in control of your faculties enough that you can, extrapolate on small emotions to create large ideas. And I think, yes, of course, I'm in a very happy place, and I'm really grateful for the life that I have, and for my wife, and for my family, and for everything that's on the way now. Uh, but I had to go through that transition, and I think a lot of songwriters do as well. Do I self-sabotage in order to create more musical content? And I think it's a terrible way to live. I think you have to figure out how to be comfortable in your own skin, and you have to write the song that you can write for the phase of life you're in. There's all of this going back to the same theme. Life is moving you on a river of time, and you have to fight the urge to swim against it. You have to make sure that you're going to the place you're supposed to be,
mm,
and write the songs that are appropriate for that time. Be the person that is appropriate for that time. A lot of these songs are about that sort of acceptance of the things that you can't change, and the wishing for something stable and grounding. So yeah,
beautiful.
I think that answers your question. I hope it does.
Very well. It does very well. Great place to leave it, Ed. Thank you for your time. Driftwood Choir. What a phenomenal album. We just hope that it's the beginning of a lot more from
It
you
will be.
and Drew, because you guys caught something really special here. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Have a
Take
good
care.
day. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in. Click here to subscribe and get the latest from the show, including exclusive behind the scenes footage and once in a lifetime performances. And as always, thank you for making J Rock Concerts Media part of your day.